half where this comes from. And you know, so kind of going back to the middle of the needs assessment and the other stuff that's going on. One day the CHR came and told me that there was this elder that wanted to talk to me. And my immediate feeling inside me was, I don't want to talk to him. I didn't know why, I didn't know who that was. I just knew that very deep inside, I don't ever want to talk to this person. And you know, that's not an appropriate response, but that's what I felt. And so I kind of resisted, and then she comes back again, and she says, he really wants to see you. And I made some excuses, and then I started doing a diagnosis. I started asking questions. You know, I said, well, who is it, and what does he want, and what's going on with them? And she says, well, he can't come to see you because he's paralyzed from the neck down. And so I asked some more questions. I said, well, what does he do? I mean, is he depressed, or is he need medication? You know, I was hoping it would be something like that because I didn't want to see him. And she says, no, what he does is he kind of prays a lot, and once or twice a year we take him up to the mountains in his wheelchair, and we leave him there for 4 days without food and water. And I was like, elder abuse. I said, you can't do that, you know, this is not right. And so asking a few more questions, and I said, well, what does he do when he's up there? And she says, well, he sees. I said, he sees what? And she says, he just sees. And so now I'm thinking, he's schizophrenic, he's crazy, because he's up there hallucinating all by himself, and he really needs a medication card. He doesn't need me. And so I'm trying to justify not seeing him. And it's a very strong feeling inside my spirit. And so one day, I come to the IHS truck to do my day, and the CHR woman is there waiting in her truck, and she says, well, nobody wants to see you today. We're going to go up there and see Terrence. And I'm like, see, she had arranged it like that, because she, you know, he really wanted me to go over there and see him. And now I'm really nervous because I don't want to do this, but see, as a psychology intern, one of the things they teach people in the mental health profession is that you have to be cool all the time, even when you're not. And so I'm starting to kind of sweat. And she said, well, get in the truck, let's go. And so I pretend that I'm cool, so I get in the truck like nothing's going on, but I'm really nervous. And so we get up to this little shack up on this hill in the pine trees, and so I get out of the passenger side, and she gets out, but she stays by the door, by the driver's door, and she says, you go. He doesn't want to talk to me, he wants to see you. And now I'm really nervous. You could say it's the beginnings of a panic attack, and I'm kind of starting to sweat, but I'm trying to maintain my calmness and pretend that, yeah, I can do this. And so I go into that little house and kind of find the room, and and there's this bed with with this person that appears to be like a skeleton, because he's been there for a long time, and it's all skin and bones, and there's bags collecting body fluids hanging on the side of the bed. And I see him, and I'm like reacting inside, because this is a lot. And then he just looks at me and smiles real big, and he smiled kind of to the side of his face, kind of a crooked smile. And the very first thing he said to me in this lifetime was, don't think that way, there's other realities. And that was the whole lesson, really, in retrospect, don't think that way, there's other realities. But when he said that, I was trying to still diagnose him because I was so nervous. And see, in psychology, there's a diagnosis for people who think they're reading your mind. And if somebody thinks they're reading your mind, that means they're crazy. So I was still trying to maintain that he's crazy to make myself comfortable. But I couldn't hold the thought, because my brain is melting, and I'm starting to it's beyond a panic attack now. I'm feeling like I'm losing it a little bit. And so then he laughs again, and he laughed this time. And up to this time, most of us know when people laugh, they laugh. But see, in psychology, they tell you that there's two kinds of laughter. There's appropriate laughter and inappropriate laughter, right? Well, I interpreted his laughter as inappropriate because I took it personal. So he really laughed, and then he asked me a question, and he says, have you ever seen the colors? And that's a very simple question. But when he asked that question, I'm really starting to kind of sway and starting to lose it, and trying to just stay conscious because I'm starting to black out. And all I could say was, no sir, I have never seen the colors. And then he laughed again, even more inappropriate than the other time. And he said, do you want me to show them to you? And it was at that moment that I really, really had to struggle to stay conscious. And all I could say is, no sir, I don't want you to show me anything. And then I started moving towards the door because it was too much. And right as I'm at the door, he says, I really want you to come back and see me again. And I was like, oh man, I wish he hadn't said that. Because now I have to come back as, as the only mental health person in the community, I was stuck. And I was like, man, I wish I could have just gotten out of there without him saying anything. And so I left and kind of tried to revive myself and get back in the truck. And I was really shaken. And from what I just told you, there's no real reason for me to be shaken, right? Because nothing really happened. And so I go back a couple weeks later and I stay a little bit longer, and then a little bit longer. And so pretty soon I can go and see him and kind of just be there. And then he's telling me all of these things that don't make any sense. But by now I knew he wasn't crazy, because in the community people saw him as somebody who had a lot of wisdom. And so, I got more and more comfortable with him. And he would always ask me what I was learning in my studies. And then I would tell him, and every time I would tell him what I was learning, he would laugh. And so that became kind of just the routine. I would tell him what I was learning, he would laugh, and then we'd talk a little bit. And then he would tell me some things that didn't make any sense to me. And so I would leave and think, I wonder what he's talking about. And so, I guess it's okay because he's not crazy. And maybe I'm just doing supportive therapy. So I thought I was doing something for him and not realizing that something else was going on here. And it was on June 19 of 1982 or 3 that I went to see him. And when I went to see him, he was on his porch in his wheelchair, and he was wearing a brand new shirt, and he was wearing a brand new head bandana, and he was sitting like I had never seen him before. He looked really different. And he's sitting on the porch here, looking that way. So I sit on a step here next to his wheelchair, and we're both kind of looking in the same direction. And however long I was with him, I don't know how long I was there sitting on the porch with him, but when he talked to me that day, everything he said made sense. He talked in a very rational way where I understood what he was talking about. And so when I left, I was really resentful, because now I knew that he could do that. He could talk to me regular, but for 3 years, he chose to play with my head. That's what I thought. He was just messing with my mind when he could have been talking to me like a regular person. And so, I got resentful and let it go. And so 2 days later, which happened to be June 21, which is the solstice, he had one of his family members bring in his altar, which happened to be a pipe. And when he smoked that pipe, he expelled himself into the spirit world. And that's when I knew who he was. Then I realized that I had been in the presence of a very holy person for all that time. And even the way he left this life, he left it in a sacred way, and he left it in ceremony. He actually just went. And then I realized that June 19 talk is where he gave me what I call the Rosetta Stone to interpret what he had been telling me for the previous 3 years. And so that's the history of my understanding and how I've been talking today, and some of the things that I'm going to say here in a little bit come from his teachings and from the wisdom that he had that goes way, way back into time of when, even before human beings were here. And it's kind of a direct connection to that black world, as we call it, the unconscious. And so he really was able to connect me to that.